From the people who help you know your competition, IntelliCheck presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way.
I mean, anytime you have an entity, it doesn't matter if it's a company or if it's a government or if it's a person, if it's your parents saying, this is what you're going to do, you only have one choice. And it poses a bit of a problem. It doesn't matter if it's food or transportation or what.
Can you imagine floating weightless, like a satellite in the black sky? I dream about things way beyond this atmosphere. Like if I was an astronaut, I definitely wouldn't still be here.
Yeah, I'm Steve Mitchell, and I'm a writer. It's not something that I've always done. I've been a creative director and an art director, theologian, and even a pastor. But because of my background, I'm able to do what I do, and I'm really grateful to, especially write for the automotive industry. And that's really one of my main focuses: transportation, logistics, and just autos. And I love cars, so it's one of those rare instances where I get to do what I love. It's a good thing.
I stumbled across Steve Mitchell while listening to the Fixed Ops 5 podcast, where he said that he's trying to be a futurist as much as possible. And after reading many of his articles at creativeguysteve.com that cover everything from EVs to personal freedom to autonomous vehicles, I knew I had to have him on the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. So exactly what is a futurist?
I dream about things way beyond this atmosphere.
So for me, a futurist is someone who has a firm grasp of the past and is able to have discernment. So often we forget the past, but the past teaches us things. And if we look at the past and see how society has gone and see what decisions people have made, whether it's from the agricultural to the industrial revolution, from the industrial to the technology, there's changes that happen and decisions people made. And there's also motives behind those decisions. So it doesn't take much to even, let's just say, use a law of unintended consequences. We're looking at where we are and where someone or where we really need to be. So I think that's what a futurist is. Takes the past and there's nothing new under the sun and says A plus B equals C based on the past. It's the same thing today. It's just different devices. And there we go, looking at the future.
And that future, according to seemingly everyone these days, is an electric one. Ford is investing $5.6 billion into Blue Oval City, which is just 45 minutes down the road from where this podcast is produced. But do we want electric vehicles?
Well, the public doesn't. I mean, from a broad focus, like any device that comes out, whether it's an iPhone or a Google device or any other random thing, there's a market for stuff. People like to be adopters. I love technology, and I'm an early adopter. If I could, I'd buy the new Apple Vision Pro thing because I think that's like the next big thing. It's crazy. Maybe not in the form that it is now. So there's those of us who like it, and EVs is one of those things. I think there are people who do buy it because they truly believe that it helps the environment. Just see how they're produced and where all the cobalt and stuff comes from. And, you have to come to the reality that it doesn't exactly help the environment. But I think that, there's a desire to do something different. And then there are people who just want something different, or they want a fast car, or they want to come across as being environmentally sensitive. And to do their part, they buy an EV. Also, there's monetary reasons, especially here in California. We have so many incentives to go out and buy them that, almost giving our car away in some cases, although even that's tempered with the fact that they're still very expensive in most cases. And so the wealthy are the ones who have a tendency to get them. But no, I think it's not something that the public's clamoring for. We're still around 7%. And the truth is, people want choice. I mean, there are going to be people who want an EV. There are going to be people who want a small sedan that seem to be going away today. There are going to be people who want to have a I have a relative who just bought a Ford Expedition. I don't know why. I mean, they have a family, but I'm like, not only is Ford getting rid of that, it's huge and it's pricey, but it's his choice, and that's what people want.
And Ford's president and CEO Jim Farley expressed a similar sentiment in a recent interview.
Without the subsidies, does America want these? Are they being jammed down our throats?
The reality is Ford has got 3 separate businesses. We have flexibility, and frankly, we're indifferent about what people want to buy. We have the best-selling vehicle in the United States, the F-150. 10% of those are hybrid now. They can power your house or a tailgate over the weekend. So we're number 2 in hybrids. We have the best-selling vehicle, the F-150. Our Bronco business is up 50%. That's all internal combustion. We have our professional vehicles, thanks to all those customers for Labor Day. And we have the EVs. We're going to give customers a choice. Let them decide.
It's just amazing, Jim. They tell you, go do this, and then go find your own rare earth. We're not mining it. And don't go to China. They put you in an impossible situation. I know you got to be politically correct, but it's tough.
So with all the push for electric vehicles from governments and corporations alike, does that mean that that's where we're going to land?
No, it's not sustainable. At least what we have currently. I was looking, and it was a news site about, just to give you an example, a guy who does less LTL, his trucking, his logistics. He moves food across the United States, and he's a small company, small in the sense that I think he has a dozen or so trucks, and they're expensive. The trucks themselves are around $80,000 and up, depending on what you buy and if it's used and stuff. California and the current administration, White House, EPA is pushing a changeover from diesel electrics, which are really environmentally so much better now than they were, and changing those out to EVs, trucks. Now, Tesla aside, Tesla is one of those amazing companies that did things first, and eventually we'll have semis on the road. But as this dude said, I've got a truck that now can go 1,800 miles or so before refueling, and it's a relatively quick refuel. And I'm going to be made to buy a $480,000 semi EV that will go 300 miles and take 10 hours to refuel and have 8,000 more pounds on it because of the batteries, which is less than what I can carry. He said it's going to take me forever to get things delivered. And I'm really concerned about the ability for us to transport food across the country like we currently do, because I can't do that. So it poses a bit of a problem of a sustainability with EVs and our infrastructure. Probably hydrogen, well, for sure, hydrogen is a better option for that kind of thing because it's less expensive and you can go just long distances and it takes very little time to refuel. But EVs, if we take it from I can go to the store and back, to how that's going to affect our logistics of delivering products and food across the United States. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to happen. And talking to the people who actually own those systems, those transportation devices, they're like, you can't. If you want to do what's called last mile delivery, like, Amazon, FedEx, little things like that are within 100 miles, that's definitely sustainable. And there's definitely a market for EVs for delivery people, plumbers, although it's still expensive to actually purchase the devices. Then you have to have the charging and all the stuff. But again, it goes back to choice. I mean, EV is not going to be good for everything, so there has to be other options. And it's a problem.
So if EVs are not where we're going to land, what should dealerships be doing, if anything, to prepare for them when it comes to fixed ops?
Anytime a new product comes out with, through Apple, I've got a couple of laptops. One is the one I'm currently on is the latest processor and stuff. And then another one that's from 2019. And from 2019 to like 2020, Apple had one set of connections. And then they said, everybody's going to have to use USB-Cs. And now you have all these, connectors. We're taking away this and we're taking away that. And people freaked. And then sure enough, a year later, they're going, kind of made a mistake. Now we're going to put this back and sorry. And all these dongles and blah, blah, blah. And often a comment that people make when it comes to the new iPhone or to the new whatever is, I'm going to wait a couple of years, and see if that new technology sticks, right? I think on a broader basis for dealerships, if I were a dealer right now, it costs so much money to make a changeover and include the things that need to be included and bought to work on EVs. And a lot of dealers just can't do that. Now, GM and Ford and others are saying, we'll help you with that. And so there's a lot of money. And given how fickle we are in our nation and sort of the transitory, I believe, nature of EVs that we'll eventually see, if dealers go and spend that money, they're going to end up with something that is not going to be lasting. So, yeah, dealers have to make a choice. And I think it's going to have to be based upon what they're selling. So if there's an Audi dealership that is my Audi, where I bought my car, and they've got EVs and they're like giving them away because people aren't buying them, and they're incentivizing them, Audi, because they cost too much. They don't get the discount that you get from a tax standpoint. So they're throwing in $7,500. And there's another $1,000 on top of it, or whatever. So if you're a dealer and you're not selling a lot of EVs, I don't know why you decide to, I'm going to buy all this equipment to work on the 3 EVs when 95% of the stuff that I sell is still big SUVs that are powerful and expensive, and it's just not sustainable for me yet. So either you're going to have to OEM give me the money to buy this stuff, or we're just going to have to let's not do this. So there's a practical part of it that is there. I think eventually OEMs are wanting to get away from the agency model of selling their cars at dealers, and that they're wanting to sell the EVs direct. And I think, eventually they're going to have, say, if I were smart, I would buy a bunch of this equipment and set up a center in a regional center, and then have it set aside to work on all of the EVs from all of the OEMs. And that way would take away from the dealers, and I would have that business because they are going to need to be worked on.
And if a dealership does happen to sell a lot of EVs and invest the money to have them serviced, who is going to work on them?
I did see an automotive news or CBT news. It had to do with technicians. So just because you're selling a lot of the cars doesn't mean that we're going to be having people who can actually work on those cars. We know our education system has its issues today. And when it comes to mechanics and journeymen and truck drivers and, things that aren't social media and you can't show your body and make money off of it, people just aren't really excited about that. And it also requires a lot of intelligence. And I don't mean it's not my intention to downgrade our current education system, but it's clear that that's not a priority. We're focused on other things. So there's going to be few people who are coming out of that system who are wanting to get into tech, or even if they do want to get into this kind of technology to work on vehicles. And that's not just EVs, but it's also ICE. They don't have anyone teaching them. And so I think GM and Ford, and also has been going on for a long time with the transportation industry. They have schools to teach people that, but there's going to be, and there already is, a lack of technicians to actually fill those jobs and to do that work. So that's the other issue. Yeah, I got all this equipment, but I can't find anybody to work on the things.
We discussed direct-to-consumer sales, alternative fuels, and the importance of dealerships having a personal relationship with their customers after a word from our sponsor. Perception is not always reality.
And, there's this perception that the dealerships are more expensive for everything. And IntelliCheck kind of confirms that that's not the case.
IntelliCheck helps dealerships become aware of where their prices stand in regard to their competitors.
And IntelliCheck does a good job of giving us that pricing data to confirm that we're in the market.
And this allows dealerships to make their customers aware of their competitive pricing.
I placed 2 placards in the business center so they could see that while they're over there working on computers. I also placed it in our coffee area. We have a glass wall there, so when they walk in, as they're putting their creamer and sugar in their coffee, they're going to look up and see the pricing for our pricing as well as our competitors.
Introducing IntelliShare. IntelliShare contains all of IntelliCheck's promotional tools that you can use to promote your favorable prices, including Intella ads, the printable flyers that you can show off in easel displays, Intella Media for your digital media boards, and Intella widgets, so you can show off price comparisons on your website and even let your customers schedule from the widget.
Just having access to that data that they're able to provide gives us a good plan of how we're going to proceed.
Call 877-827-7273 or go to IntelliCheck.com to find out more about how the IntelliShare series can help you grow your business. Thanks to Tesla, one topic that is being discussed, albeit not as openly as others, is direct-to-consumer sales with EVs. And Steve believes that this is where the industry will go.
Oh yeah, I think that's gonna happen. Like anything, right? It starts gradually. Whether it's you gain weight, you don't know it, but gradually you start putting on weight, and then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you're 200 pounds heavier. Well, it just didn't happen like that. It happened over time, and that's the way things happen, right? It's the way EVs have happened, and so there's just this, hey, we're just going to introduce it, and you don't have to. Yeah, no, it's not going to be something that we do. We don't see it as a long-term situation. Look, we're in the world of getting things overnight, Amazon, and Tesla showed that. Elon Musk, genius, did it right, regardless of how he was treated and the opinions. Oh, you're stupid. You've never been in the car industry. It's like, I'm not selling cars. I'm selling transportation devices, and I'm selling people's love to want to be an environmentalist. And I'm not looking to take over the market. And they said, well, you never will. Well, here he is now selling more vehicles than BMW and Mercedes. Right. So, but it starts slowly and then eventually gets into something that you wake up one morning and all cars are bought. And so what's going to happen is that dealerships are just going to be working on those vehicles. And I don't know how you, as an OEM, you give money back to those dealers, because there's a function of it that dealers are still the face of the manufacturer, and they're the hands and the feet, right? So there's going to have to be something worked out to where they get money for every sale in their area. But yeah, I mean, I would like it. I mean, there's nothing worse than going to a dealership, regardless of how good they are, and trying to do everything online and getting into that last part where you're 4 hours at the dealer doing all the final whatevers and waiting on the stupid car to come out. Why would I want to do that when I can just have it delivered? And I think that's where we're headed. Consumers are going to want it.
Some have speculated that a direct-to-consumer model would be a boon for fixed ops departments at dealerships, but Steve has a different take on this.
So there's probably a mindset that goes along with this is you have to take everything in this. You have to take the initial price of a vehicle, the work that is going to be done on it, resale value, all sorts of stuff like that. I think what's going to happen is eventually we're going to go to a subscription type thing. I know subscription was tried, but EVs are probably going to be treated more like phones, where you only keep it for a short amount of time until the next one comes out. Because I think unlike ICE vehicles, there's really a sell-by date on these things as far as your ownership of it, because the battery degrades and eventually you have to replace a battery just like you do in an iPhone if you keep it long enough, or you're just not going to get a lot of distance out of it. It might be at 80% capacity. When you get into a situation like that, fixed ops, they're not going to do anything. I mean, if you're looking at keeping the vehicle, say 10,000 miles a year, and depending on where you live, for 3 years, it's like 30,000 miles. And so in 30,000 miles, you might rotate, if people think about it, they may rotate tires 2-3 times. I don't know. But there may not be a lot to be done. So it puts a fixed ops department, it puts a lot of stress on it. Things break and things get messed up, but it's less of an issue. And, every car is really good at working for quite a bit of time before something messes up on it. Warranty claims are what they are. So there'll be a big focus on warranty claims. because that's how they're going to make their money.
But not every automaker is all in on the electric revolution.
Here's why Toyota's chief scientist is saying they're not going to bet the farm on all battery electric cars being here soon. And this guy isn't a businessman, he's their scientist.
Toyota's cooking up something new in their garage. And it's not just any ordinary vehicle. We're talking about a brand new, revolutionary hydrogen vehicle. They're calling it the new hydrogen combustion engine. This technology could be a game changer in the automotive industry. Unlike other manufacturers that have gone all electric, Toyota is taking a different route.
Hydrogen is, I'm trying to make an analogy here, sort of like when the whole fat-free craze came about, and fat was the devil. And the sugar companies were talking about fat being the devil because actually sugar was the bad thing. Right. I think we're sort of seeing the same thing. There's a boogeyman, and it's not EVs, but it's hydrogen. Because, you put hydrogen in your car, it could blow up. Right. And all this other stuff. That's what's being told. Well, so can gasoline, Yeah. So, and for that matter, batteries. Talk to the people in Florida who've had water damage to their EVs, and there's an issue with batteries. So it's been pushed as a bad thing. And the infrastructure, but there's less of an infrastructure issue with hydrogen because we're talking long distances. These things can go long distances, and it doesn't take long to fuel them back up. And hydrogen is cheap. I think that has to be, and Toyota's working on it. Hyundai was for a while, especially on their trucking. I haven't heard much about that recently. They had a semi that ran on hydrogen they were testing. So that's definitely something that will take care of the whole sustainability issue from a transportation standpoint and infrastructure going from across the United States. I think that has to be something considered. And Toyota's shown that it works in a consumer vehicle. The only downside is being behind one and throws water on your windshield when it accelerates, right? It's rock solid. And Toyota, I think, has seen where this is headed. And you're right, they're very intelligent. And I think that's something that will happen. But it's not going to be because of support from the government or the EV or the electric industry or whatever. No one wants that because they want to control the market. And that control extends not just to the EVs, but the ability to get more into how the consumer drives, and I think eventually controlling them as to what they can and can't do in their vehicles.
F1 has a new goal, developing the fuel of the future. By 2030, it's expected that there will be 1.8 billion cars on the road, with only 8% being electric. Other solutions are needed to reduce carbon emissions, and F1 is pioneering a drop-in fuel that could be utilized by vehicles across the world. The 100% sustainable fuel is unique, lab-created from renewable biowaste, fewer emissions, more efficient, and same power packed into every drop.
In the race for the future of transportation, a thrilling plot twist has emerged that could shake the very foundation of the electric vehicle industry. As battery-powered vehicles continue to captivate the world with their eco-friendly allure, an unexpected challenger has entered the arena. Porsche, along with other automotive giants, has unleashed a groundbreaking innovation that could potentially flip the script and redefine the game entirely. Join us as we explore this new technology and what it could do to the EV industry.
So Formula One has Aramco in Formula One, and other, like Shell and others, have been working on what's called sustainable fuel that is not necessarily made up of gasoline. And it's really working well. And that's the thing now. And so with Porsche and others being involved in that, to me, that sounds like a great alternative. And I think what we get down to, again, is let's just assume EVs are the savior of the world. They're not. But let's just make that assumption. Is it really right for us strategically as a nation, just forget what everybody else does, to put all of our eggs in one basket? Isn't that what we're doing with gasoline and oil? Yeah, we have an unending supply of oil. But if that's a bad thing, then why put our eggs in a basket that's even less sustainable? Because we just don't have the power. California, Texas, other parts of the United States barely even make it through the summer. without having brownouts, losing electricity. Seriously, just think of the logic of this. You want to go take away other fuels and go specifically to electricity? I don't understand that logic. It doesn't work unless there's some other motive behind it. So having in Steve's ideal world, it's like you can choose from hydrogen, you can choose from EVs, you can choose an ICE vehicle, and whatever else we come up with, biofuels of any kind. So that is something that it should be how our society sustains itself. Because it promotes all sorts of benefits. Technology, we expand our knowledge. And is there going to be something sold more than others? Yeah, of course there is. But that's just how we work, right? And that moves society forward. What we're doing now is not moving forward.
And Steve doesn't just write about the future. He also writes about the now. And one thing that dealerships can implement immediately in both sales and service is personal communication with their customers.
I'll tell you what personalization isn't. I received a communication from a dealership and about buying an EV. I haven't even looked at EVs at this dealership. Don't care to do it. And it didn't hit me on anything this dealership knows about me. So that's definitely not personal communication. Look, whether it's a dealership or whether it's a furniture store or it doesn't make grocery store or whatever, it's important to know who you're talking to. And that just comes from getting to know people on a one-to-one basis. And it can actually even happen in a dealership. There are cars that OEMs and dealers want to push because it's important for them to sell that many, whatever that take. But there are customers who either can't afford to or don't really need that car. And the only way you're going to find out what that person's need is to have conversations with them and to hear what they have to say and don't push them and sell. And it's really kind of common sense. But even today, even though people like Zig Ziglar have said for decades, you can get what you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. We still don't follow that, especially in a customer-centered area about buying a car. It's a very emotional decision. And for the majority of people, it costs a lot of money. So getting to know what they want, I think, is really important. It's going to happen over 2 or 3 months and finding out what their desires are. If we were going to a dealership right now, myself and Emily, and the dealer talked to me or they knew me, they'd go, okay, Steve, I know that you really like that S3. Or maybe the RS3 or the RS5. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I sign me up. Well, she is thinking SUV. And there's a why. And so, because they carry more stuff and kids and it's bigger and it's whatever. And Steve, what do you want? I'm really interested in getting something that's fun to drive. Because SUVs aren't fun to drive. They're necessities maybe, but they're not fun to drive. And why? What if you had to pour and all this, blah, 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 blah. So getting to know that will help that dealer to make a recommendation or present some options to Steve and Emily about what would be good choices for them. And then once they buy that car, to keep in touch with them, I think is a bigger thing to make sure things are going well. In advertising and marketing, we'd also always talked about share of garage. And depending on, say, a Gen Z coming in, they're not gonna buy an SUV for a family because they just don't have a family. They're going to buy a smaller vehicle. Unfortunately, we're getting rid of those. But let's just say they do buy that. Well, if you don't keep in touch with that person as they go through their life, they find somebody, they end up marrying him. It's something to celebrate. And they end up then having a family. So as they go through these stages in their life, they're going to need something different. And the only way you know that they're going to need something different, or if they have gone through a stage of life, is to keep in touch with them. And then once they hit that stage of life, go, yeah, I know you love that 4-door sedan or that 2-door coupe or hatchback, but you're going to need something bigger. We got some really good options here for you. You go and buy a car today, and it's really rare that the person keeps in touch with you. And if you respond back to that dealer, that salesperson, maybe you're there getting your car worked on or something, they act as if you're someone new. So that kind of communication. I mean, people don't want to be best friends with you and have you invite them over to their kids' bar mitzvahs or whatever, but they do want you to acknowledge them as someone who's valuable. And it just, every once in a while, just checking in on them, I think is a good thing. Personal communication, just like you would your family members. People want to be noticed. People don't, salespeople and automotive industry people don't have to do those things. But when we're selling something that is integral to society and is what a lot of people identify with, their car, it's important to know the reasons and the psychographics and stuff behind it. And that's from the OEM side all the way to the dealers. And then looking for ways not to just sell them the product, but a way to help them, because that's what people want too. They want to be helped. And I think that if there was a way that a dealer could talk about the importance of that part of a person, I think would be really good. Yeah, we need to know whether or not they make enough money to actually buy the car they're looking at, or, their credit rating or whatever. But, there's other stuff that, will really help us go a long way towards communicating with them. If we had that part that I think we've lost, we've turned into such a transactional society and care less about people. And I don't want to get all like soft and stuff. I mean, because, we do have to run a business, right? But yeah, that kind of desire to know people. Whether you do it or not, it comes across when you talk with them, and people see the care in your eyes. And it might help that when it comes time for them to make a decision and your cars are more expensive or your service is more expensive, because they had that relationship with you, it's been proven they're going to stay with you and not go somewhere else. Even if you don't invite them over to your house for dinner, they still feel that you're part of their tribe. And people still want to be part of someone's tribe.
I'd like to thank Steve Mitchell from CreativeGuySteve.com for a most awesome interview. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm dinghy. Executive producers for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast are Melissa Marlette and Joe Gibson. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is Time Shift by Reveille. IntelliCheck. Know your competition.